Hello, welcome to The Secret Mind. A quick one today. I've got some editing to do of a video and I need to learn how to use it. So I thought I'd do some quick poems again. It's been a week since I did the last one, and in the last week this has probably made the most impact on me. Actually forcing myself to go and read some poems to find something, dig up something worth repeating. And I think I must have quite enjoyed it. Um, so I'm going to do that again now. Now I've picked this. This is the book I'm working from, Henry Normal Collected Poems, Volume 1, because he's a funny guy. So the first time, you will remember, I did 10, looked at 10 poems. I'm going to look at another 10 now. I'm not going to read very many of them out. I didn't take to most of them, but there's one or two ideas. So I'm just looking at the ideas to comment on what's going on in the poems. Sometimes it's just one idea that's expanded to a poem. And there's a million ways of doing that. You could have a go at that yourself. Some of these are quite fancy. Sometimes it's just a subject matter. Sometimes there's a line that's interesting. And sometimes the longer poem connects with you. Just I noticed in reading these through now, it's quite a hypnotic process. You've got to get yourself in the zone to try and understand the metaphors that the poet, Henry in this case, is using, which means you've just got to get down there with him and dig around, and you might come up with something different if the what he's presenting is quite, can be interpreted quite broadly, or it may be focusing on something very specific. He talks about his family a little bit, which he's done on the Radio 4 programs as well, and which he does live as well. He has an autistic son who's quite markedly limited, and so it's quite interesting. Now, the other thing about these things, as you know or may know, I like a poem that rhymes. I don't think any of these do. So come on, Henry, give us a poem that rhymes. So I'm only going to read out the ones that connect with you. And then I'm going to read out one of someone else's. I don't know many poems, but a few years ago I heard another one. I made a note of it and I'm going to read you that. And that's a bit of fun. A reward for getting through some of these. So on page 25 of this book, The Frame of the Mona Lisa Dreams, it's called. It didn't connect with me, so we're moving on. The next one was Photos with My Son. Of course, he has an autistic son, Johnny. That's his name. It's a very short poem. Doesn't rhyme. But it just has one idea with it. So I'm just going to share the idea with you. And it's the final 4 lines. He doesn't smile. He just says smile, echoing the words from behind the camera. So that's a lovely idea. Some ideas don't need expanding that much. But he doesn't smile, he just says smile. It reminds me of playing hide and seek as a kid, and you just go and just hide your eyes and your bum would be sticking out of the duvet or something, but it's just a slight misinterpretation or misperception in the case of that. So that's that. Next one is called, so I'm not reading that full one out, it's not long, but that's the idea of it. Summer on Pluto. This is quite dark. I'm going to read it out because it's another thing about when he received the diagnosis, and it does chime with some of my thoughts and concerns, which I'm going to be expanding on, about communication, particularly bad medical communication, which is often hypnotic in the way it terrorizes people. And this, although I wouldn't go around reciting it to people at parties, it's not a lot of fun, it will probably be a very good example if you wanted to think about the words that you use as a doctor or as anybody else, whatever it is you do. And bear in mind, you've always got to bear in mind, of course, any medic knows this, who knows their stuff, should realise that the words you're saying in a consultation might be remembered for the rest of their lives. So you should maybe try to take it seriously and do the best job you can. But in the number of times I've quoted that down the years, I've had glassy-eyed looks from doctors back at me, so maybe we're not all on the same page. This page is page 27. It's called Summer on Pluto. I'm going to read it to you. It only must be about 20 lines. In a room with no windows, I'm given a leaflet. The word incurable is printed in bold on the first page. This is the only time I will spend in this room. This is the only time I will speak to this person. Autism is a spectrum. There are degrees. Your son is mildly severe. What does that mean? It means he will always live at home. It means he will never have a job, never have a girlfriend, never be capable of taking care of himself. You will never have a conversation with him, ever. It means you will worry about him every day. You will worry if he's happy. You will worry if he's lonely. You will worry what will happen to him when you die. Mildly severe, benignly savage, kindly cruel. None of this appeared on the leaflet. So, I don't think that requires much comment really. It describes an incident likely to be a very real one, and certainly typical of what goes on when bad news is broken badly. Also, the danger of making predictions. As a doctor, I mean, these are terrible predictions to make. How do they know what will never happen? They'll never have a girlfriend, never be capable of taking him. Are you really so certain you need to remind people of that at an early stage? That is putting people very negative suggestions in people's minds. What's the use of that, I wonder? Predictions. Dangerous in medicine. This is another one. Next one is called Logic is Not a Feeling. And it's about the horizon. Now, the horizon's a lovely thing. I mean, last week on one of the blogs, I don't think it was the poetry blog, it was the Good Arrows blog. I read a poem that I'd written about the ocean, the sea. This is about the horizon. A great thing to write about for a poem. Lots of metaphors waiting for you, a purity, something everybody loves looking out on. So I think that's a great subject matter. So my point with this poem is, I've no particular intention of reading it to you, is if you want to write a poem, that's a great subject to write about. I think you might do something that connects a bit better than this one. This left me a bit blank at the end of it. You know, with a cloudless sky and very little wave, the meeting of the light and royal blue is perfection. It's not, you know, it's not all that, is it? Now, the next one is called The Eating of a Unicorn. Oh, it makes me feel hungry just thinking about it. And this will be interesting to see what you think about this. I will read this to you. I think it's quite interesting. I think it's probably an allegory, because I think we've ate our last unicorn, planet Earth, I'm sorry to report. And apparently it tasted a lot like chicken. So I'm eating this unicorn and I'm thinking, this isn't right. But you've got to eat, haven't you? So you tell yourself it's okay. Everybody eats them, but you know that's not strictly true. So you look for some justification, some strand of logic, some attitude, some philosophy, however slim. But you know in your gut it still isn't right. So you think about minimizing the damage, but you know you just can't simply throw up and piece the whole business back together. So you say what is done and you have to live with it, but you still wish you hadn't eaten the bloody thing and wonder how you could have ever felt that hungry. So you pretend it never happened, that you know nothing about it, and besides, you thought it was just a horse made up. But now you have to dispose of what's left of the body, and in case it's discovered, you have to hide the head and the horn separately. So there you are, breaking off the head and the horn from a half-eaten unicorn at dead of night. But, I mean, that's an interesting poem, isn't it? So is that an allegory about things you regret? Anything that you chose to do and you immediately decided that wasn't the right thing to do? Is it simply the story of Henry eating a unicorn? Well, probably not. It finishes with the word but. I don't think that's necessary. It's perfectly good to finish it off with. So there you are, breaking off the head and the horn from a half-eaten unicorn at dead of night. Not sure that needs any more words, not even a tiny one like that. But it's good. I like it. Something about regret, I think, for me. Might mean something different to you. Next one is called King Canute Should Have Checked the Tides. I having been caught by the tides many times myself, I didn't care for it. So there we go. That's that. Next one is the first spark that led to this blaze. And this is, I'll tell you the final line. It's you are the story. So it's one of those things that's saying it's you're the story. And there's a risk of these poems. They can sound really life-affirming if you get it right, or they can sometimes sound a bit pious if you don't quite get it right, if there's not enough colour in your script. Or a bit of rhyme would help push it through to, if you're going to have a slightly pious, preachy sort of thing. And I don't think it means to be. It just didn't engage me. I'd pick a middle verse here. The story of life, the story of creation witnessed from the first spark to the disintegration of the very last cell is one story, our story. You know, fine, but it sounds as though it's the opening script of a Brian Cox documentary, and it doesn't rhyme, and those words were written on 6 different lines. I don't know enough about poetry to know how you decide when another line is supposed to start, because to me it was when lines 2 and 4 end with the same sound, and maybe even 1 and 3. So it didn't really connect with me, but poems in general where you're the story, or you know, and that person was you know, dear reader, I married him, is that sort of ending, even if it's not a twist ending, is always a nice one. It brings things full circle. I didn't care for that poem particularly. Next one I didn't care for either. Animals and small children find me out. So I'm not gonna trouble you with that. I did like this one. So this is the final one of his I'm going to read. It's called The Perfect You. And it's got, like a few of Henry's I'm noticing, a bit of a sci-fi edge to it. And I thought that was what it was about. But in fact, it isn't that at all. So you can get a few meanings into it. And it's quite expansive in the way it describes things. And it's got a nice bit of rhythm and repetition all the way through. Although I don't think it has much that would pass for rhyme. But, you know, I guess what poems are going to do is they're going to try to knock out my love of rhyme from me. Good luck, poems. It's only going to be one winner. And, oh, there we go. It's my microphone telling me I've got performance issues again. Well, I had then, yeah. But... All right. So, and it's got a little bit of a twist end. It's called The Perfect You. I am the other you. The perfect you. The one bred from your DNA. Taken at birth. Our birth. Cultivated for spare parts. Kept alive by machines. Stored in the dark. Waiting. We grow simultaneous. Alike but not quite. For I have no defects. No scars. No scratches. No weathered skin, no blemishes, no bruises, no acquired resistance, no yellowing of the eye, no tooth decay, no furrows in the brow, no creases on the palms, no lifeline, no love line. I am the other you, the perfect you. That's great. I really like that one. Doesn't need my explanation, but it's a very nice way of looking at the price of living life and the price of experience and how you best to opt for it and keep yourself in a cupboard out of the daylight. I promised you another poem before I go. It's by Roger McGough, Scouse poet. News flash, it rhymes. Heard it on, I think, probably the radio a few years ago and tracked it down. And if you push me to name a poem, this is the only other one I would be able to name. It's called Soil by Roger McGough. I'm going to read it to you from a web page. Soil. We've ignored each other for a long time, and I'm strictly an indoor man. Any time to call will be the wrong time. I'll avoid you as long as I can. When I was a boy, we were good friends. I made pies out of you when you were wet, and in childhood's remembered summer weather, we rough and tumbled together. We were very close. Just you and me and the sun. The world a place for having fun, always so much to be done. But gradually, I grew away from you. Of course you were still there. During my earliest sexcapades, when I rough and fumbled, not very well after bedtime, but suddenly it was winter, and you seemed so cold and dirty that I stayed indoors and acquired a taste for girls and clean clothes. We found less and less to say. You were jealous, so one day I simply upped and moved away. I still called to see you on occasions, but we had little now in common, and my visits grew less frequent until finally, one cold bright April morning, a handful of you drummed on my father's waxworks coffin. At last it all made sense. There was no need for pretense. You said nothing in defence. And now recently, while travelling from town to town, past where you live, I've become increasingly aware of you watching me out there, patient and unforgiving, toying with the trees. We've avoided each other for a long time, and I'm strictly a city man. Any time to call will be the wrong time. I'll avoid you as long as I can. Yeah. See you tomorrow.